My name is Maya. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story of how my own parents tried to destroy my career to keep me trapped. It starts, as most nightmares do, disguised as a beautiful dream. But before we get into that, let me take you to the moment my world shattered. I was sitting in my car on the I-90 bridge heading into Seattle, my hands shaking as I listened to the head of HR on the other end of the line. He was confused, almost apologetic, telling me that he'd received my email, the one where I turned down my dream job, an email I never wrote. In that instant, I knew they had done it. Before that call, my life felt perfect, almost like a movie. I was a senior graphic designer living in a comfortable studio apartment in Bellevue, a polished suburb just across Lake Washington from Seattle. The apartment was owned by my parents, Brenda and Gary, a fact they never let me forget, but it felt like a fair trade for the peace and proximity. The real dream, however, had just landed in my inbox a week prior. An offer for the creative director position at Archetype Games, one of the most innovative gaming studios in the country, located right in the heart of the city. It was everything I had worked for. My parents were ecstatic, or so I thought. My mother, Brenda, immediately started sending me listings for luxury apartments in South Lake Union, her excitement seemingly mirroring my own. It was a flawless performance, a perfect illusion of support that masked a terrifying truth. If you've ever felt that something wonderful was just a little too good to be true, give this video a like to let me know I'm not alone. That illusion of support was so convincing, so meticulously crafted, that I dismissed the little red flags that started popping up. They were like tiny glitches in a perfectly rendered world. For instance, I was waiting for the official contract from Archetype's HR department. They'd mention it, sending it over, but days passed, and my inbox remained empty. When I called them, they confirmed it had been sent twice. I chalked it up to an aggressive spam filter, never once suspecting someone might be intercepting them. At the same time, my mother's helpful apartment search became a campaign of subtle discouragement. She'd find a beautiful place and then add, "Oh, but look at the crime rate in this area, Maya. It's just not safe for a young woman alone." Or, "The commute from here would be a nightmare. Are you sure you can handle that kind of stress every single day?" Each comment was a delicate pinprick to my confidence, disguised as maternal concern. The most blatant sign came a couple of days before I was supposed to sign the final papers. I was on a video call with my new team, a get-to-know-you session on my brand-new work laptop. My mom brought me a cup of coffee, and as she set it down, her hand slipped, sending hot coffee flooding across the keyboard. The screen went black. "Oh, my clumsy me," she cried, but her eyes held a flicker of something that wasn't regret. It was satisfaction. Let me know where in the world you're watching this from right now, because I need to feel that there's a world outside of that suffocating house. Despite the broken laptop and my mother's persistent negativity, I pushed forward, operating on pure adrenaline and excitement. I borrowed my dad's old tablet and managed to get everything sorted with my new employer. The day I was to drive into Seattle to sign the final contract felt monumental. I remember picking out my outfit with care, a sharp blazer that made me feel powerful, confident. The sun was brilliant, glinting off Lake Washington as I drove onto the I-90 floating bridge. The Seattle skyline rose up ahead of me, a collection of glass and steel towers that represented my future, my freedom. I felt invincible. I was humming along to the radio, my mind racing with plans for my new home, new projects, a new life. That's when my phone rang, the Bluetooth in my car announcing the caller, John Anderson, the head of HR from Archetype. I smiled, assuming it was a last-minute call to confirm our lunch meeting after the signing. I answered cheerfully, "Hi, John, I'm just about 10 minutes away." His voice on the other end was not cheerful. It was hesitant, heavy with a kind of professional regret. "Maya," he began, and the way he said my name sent a chill down my spine. "I'm a bit confused. I just wanted to personally say we're very sorry you've had a change of heart, although we were surprised to get your email this morning." My smile froze. My email. I stammered, my heart beginning to hammer against my ribs. "Yes," he said. "The one declining the creative director position. You said you needed to pursue an opportunity with less pressure, closer to your family." The world outside my car windows, the water, the sky, the city, seemed to warp and dissolve. I don't remember taking the next exit. All I remember is the shriek of my own tires as I made a dangerous, illegal U-turn, the blare of horns fading behind me as I floored it back towards Bellevue. My mind was a vortex of denial and a sickening, rising certainty. It couldn't be. And yet, it was the only thing that made sense. The missing emails, the spilled coffee, the constant whispers of discouragement. It was all a coordinated attack. I burst out of my car and ran straight to the door of my studio apartment, the one with its own entrance, my supposed independent space. The key felt foreign in my trembling hand, but I didn't need it. The door was unlocked. I shoved it open and stumbled into a void. It was empty, completely, sterilely empty. The walls were bare, the floors scrubbed clean. My furniture, my books, my art, my entire life gone. It hadn't just been packed, it had been erased. A primal scream built in my throat as I ran into the main house, shouting my mother's name. She appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron, a placid smile on her face that was more terrifying than any expression of anger. "Maya, darling, you're home," she said calmly. "Come upstairs. I have a surprise for you." She led me up the familiar stairs to my childhood bedroom. And there it was. All of it. My adult life crammed into a teenage prison. My professional design awards sat next to a dusty volleyball trophy. My expensive work clothes were crushed into a closet that still smelled faintly of my high school perfume. If you have ever felt like someone was trying to force you back into a version of yourself you've outgrown, comment with a 1 below. I stared at the scene, at the desecration of my adult identity, and finally found my voice. It came out as a strangled whisper. "What is this? What have you done?" My mother, Brenda, stepped beside me, placing a hand on my shoulder with an air of profound satisfaction. "We fixed it, sweetie," she said, her voice dripping with a twisted form of love. "We saved you." I recoiled from her touch. "Saved me? You destroyed my career." "I got a call, Mom. They think I rejected the offer." Her smile didn't falter. "Of course they do. We saw how much pressure you were under. The late nights, the stress, the constant worrying. You weren't happy, Maya. A mother knows." My father, Gary, appeared in the doorway then, his posture apologetic, but his words echoing my mother's delusion. "She's right, honey. We were so worried that big city job would just swallow you whole. This is for the best." I felt a wave of nausea. They weren't just making excuses. They believed their own lies. They had appointed themselves the heroes of a story where I was the damsel in distress, a story I never asked to be in. For the best? I repeated, my voice rising with hysteria. You made a life-altering decision for me, without my consent. You went behind my back and sabotaged everything I have ever worked for. Brenda shook her head slowly, a look of pity on her face. You're just upset right now. You don't see it yet, but one day you'll thank us for having the courage to do what you couldn't. The audacity, the sheer unadulterated arrogance of that statement left me speechless. They weren't just controlling me. They were rewriting my reality. My mind reeled, trying to grasp the mechanics of their betrayal. It wasn't just a phone call. John had mentioned an email. My email. How? I asked, my voice shut and hold. How did you send that email? I scanned the room, my eyes landing on my work laptop, the one my mother had supposedly taken to a repair shop after the accident. It sat on my old teenage desk, looking ominously out of place. I lunged for it, flipping open the lid. The login screen appeared. I typed in my password, my fingers flying across the keys. Incorrect password. I tried again, slower this time. Incorrect password. A new, deeper layer of cold dread washed over me. You changed my password. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. My mother sighed, as if I were a difficult toddler. We didn't have a choice, dear. You're so secretive. She then called down the stairs. Leo, come up here, please. Your sister is having a hard time understanding. My younger brother, Leo, appeared in the doorway, his face a mixture of guilt and misplaced loyalty. Tell her, my mother prompted gently. Leo wouldn't look at me. I helped Mom figure out your password, he mumbled, staring at the floor. It was the name of your first dog, Sparky. You always use Sparky. The use of that cherished memory as a weapon felt like a physical blow. Brenda then stepped forward, her voice filled with pride. Once we were in, it was simple. We found the acceptance letter you'd drafted. We just adjusted the wording a little, sent it, and then deleted it from your sent folder and your trash. A clean slate. It's better this way. She described the digital assassination of my future as if she were talking about tidying up the kitchen. Hearing the cold, methodical details from my mother was one thing, but the confession from my own brother shattered a different part of my soul. I turned away from my mother, my gaze locking onto Leo. He was the one I'd shared secret jokes with, the one I'd helped with his college applications, the one I thought was my friend, my ally in this subtly oppressive house. Leo, I whispered, my voice breaking. Why? You knew what this job meant to me. For a moment, I saw a flicker of shame in his eyes, but it was quickly extinguished by a wave of defensive righteousness, an expression I realized he had learned from our mother. I did it because they were worried, Maya, he said, finally looking at me. His tone was condescending, as if I were the one who was unreasonable. You've been so stressed out, always talking about work. You barely come to family dinners anymore. They did this because they love you. Then came the words that felt like a nail in the coffin of our relationship. Why do you have to be so dramatic about everything? It's just a job. Just a job. He dismissed my entire career, my passion, my future, as an overreaction. The person I thought would understand me was now just another voice in the chorus of my captors, singing a song of loving control. In that moment, the fight drained out of me, replaced by a profound, desolate loneliness. I wasn't just fighting my parents. I was fighting my entire family, a united front that had decided my life was theirs to architect. I was utterly and completely alone. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with all your heart, whether it's family or a friend, I want you to know that this space is safe for you. Share your story in the comments if you feel comfortable, so we can support each other. Numbness began to creep in, a cold protective shell forming over my shattered emotions. If I couldn't reason with them, if I couldn't appeal to their love, then I needed to salvage what was left of my life and get out. A practical thought sliced through the fog. My freelance work. I had projects, clients who depended on me. I needed my equipment. I began to frantically search through the boxes and piles of my belongings they had crammed into the room. "Where is it?" I muttered, my hands digging past old yearbooks and forgotten sweaters. "Where is my camera bag?" I looked up at my parents. My Canon, my lenses. Where are they? My gaze then darted to the top of the dresser where my grandmother's antique jewelry box was supposed to be. It was gone. The box held the one truly valuable thing I owned, a diamond necklace passed down from her. And my grandmother's necklace? A new, terrifying thought began to form. My mother didn't even flinch. She picked a piece of lint off her sweater and spoke with a chilling casualness. "Oh, those. I sold them." The 4 words hung in the air, heavy and poisonous. "You... what?" "I sold them," she repeated, as if discussing the weather. "That camera equipment was just a distraction, Maya, encouraging that unstable photography hobby, and you never wore the necklace. It was just sitting there collecting dust." My father added, "We put the money into a new trust fund for you." A little nest egg. My mother finished the thought, her voice bright with triumph. "You'll get access to it when you've shown you can make more responsible life choices." They hadn't just violated my privacy and sabotaged my career. They had stolen from me. They had liquidated my assets, my tools for survival, my last link to my grandmother, and locked the proceeds away behind a financial wall only they controlled. That was it. That was the moment the emotional tether to them finally snapped. There was no more anger, no more tears, just a profound, chilling clarity. They would never stop. I looked at the 3 faces, my mother, proud and righteous, my father, weak and complicit, my brother, a confused parrot of their ideology. There was nothing left to say. Without a word, I turned around, walked out of my childhood bedroom, down the stairs, and straight towards the front door. "Maya, where do you think you're going?" My mother called, her voice sharp with indignations. "And you don't walk away when we are talking to you." But I didn't stop. I opened the door, stepped out into the evening air, and didn't look back. I got in my car and just drove. I had no destination. My home had been erased. My career had been assassinated. My financial tools had been liquidated. I was 28 years old, and in the space of a few hours, I had become homeless, jobless, and utterly alone. I ended up at Gasworks Park, staring across the water at the glittering Seattle skyline that was supposed to have been my triumph. And there, sitting on a cold metal bench, I finally broke. I cried until I couldn't breathe. When the sobs subsided into ragged gasps, one name cut through the despair: Chloe, my best friend since college, the one person my mother could never quite control. She was a junior associate at a law firm downtown. She was logical, fierce, and loyal to a fault. My hands shook as I dialed her number. I could barely form words, just choked sobs and fractured pieces of the story. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, there was a beat of silent, furious energy on the other end of the line. Then her voice, clear and sharp as the glass. "Send me your location. Do not go back to that house. You're coming to my apartment right now." Sometimes the family you choose is the only one that can save you. If you have a Chloe in your life, someone who is your rock, I want you to take a second right now and just appreciate them. Let's choose to focus on the good people. While I was huddled in Chloe's apartment, wrapped in a blanket and feeling like a refugee from my own life, something was shifting back at that house in Bellevue. I didn't know it at the time, of course. Leo told me all of this much later, his voice heavy with a shame I don't think he'll ever fully shake. After I'd stormed out, my mother wasn't worried or heartbroken. She was energized, pacing the living room on a victory lap. My father retreated into the den with the TV, unable to cope. But my mother got on the phone with her sister. Leo, sitting in his room, overheard the conversation. He told me he expected to hear concern, maybe even regret. Instead, he heard triumph. He heard my mother laughing. "You should have seen her face, Linda," she cackled. "Utterly pathetic. She finally understands who's in charge." Then he heard the line that changed everything. It was never about her being stressed. It was about her thinking she could just leave us. It wasn't about love. It was about power. It was a game, and she had just won. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He told me it felt like waking up from a trance. Driven by a desperate need to undo some of the damage, he went into our dad's home office. He knew their computer password. It was their anniversary. He searched through my mother's browser history and found it, her eBay account. And there they were, listings marked sold. My Canon R5 camera, described as owned by a flighty amateur. My grandmother's necklace, listed as vintage estate piece, unappreciated. He took screenshots of everything, the listings, the sale prices, the buyer's information. Then, he sent them all to my phone, a torrent of damning evidence. The last message simply said, "I am so sorry, Maya. Use this. Burn them to the ground." The screenshots from Leo changed everything. They weren't just evidence. They were armor. Over the next 24 hours, Chloe and I didn't just wallow in grief. We strategized. Chloe, in her element, made a series of calls. We weren't going back for a fight. We were going back for an extraction. The next afternoon, we pulled up to the curb of my parents' immaculate suburban home. But I wasn't alone this time. Behind us, a patrol car from the Bellevue Police Department pulled up. 2 officers got out. Chloe had arranged for a civil standby, a police escort to ensure the peaceful retrieval of personal property in a domestic dispute. It was the ultimate, non-negotiable boundary. I rang the doorbell. When my mother opened it, her face, prepared for another round of emotional manipulation, collapsed in shock. She saw me, then Chloe standing beside me holding a briefcase, and then her eyes widened at the 2 uniformed officers standing calmly on the walkway. "What is the meaning of this?" she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. "You brought the police to our home?" Before I could speak, Chloe stepped forward. "Brenda," she said, her voice calm and devoid of emotion. "We are here to retrieve Maya's remaining personal and professional property. The officers are here simply to keep the peace." My mother began to splutter. "This is absurd." "She is our daughter." Chloe cut her off smoothly, opening her briefcase and pulling out the printed screenshots. We also have evidence of the theft and unauthorized sale of her property, including a Canon R5 camera and an heirloom diamond necklace. Now, we can either handle this by collecting her things and discussing financial restitution later, or these officers can take your statement regarding a criminal complaint. It's your choice. The color drained from my mother's face. My father appeared behind her, looking utterly defeated. For the first time in my life, they were powerless. They stepped aside. I packed my things in a surreal silence, ignoring my mother's occasional choked sobs and my father's whispered, "I'm sorry." They weren't apologies for what they'd done, only for getting caught. As Chloe and I drove away, with my life packed into the back of her SUV, I didn't feel sadness. I felt the clean, sharp relief of a surgeon's cut, excising a sickness I had carried my whole life. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt. Chloe, on my behalf, contacted Archetype Games and laid out the entire story, complete with the evidence. They were horrified, but also incredibly impressed. They not only reinstated my job offer, but fast-tracked my start date. I am now sitting in my own apartment in Capitol Hill, looking out at the city that is finally mine. My firm is handling the legal battle to recover the full value of what my parents sold. I am no contact with them. My relationship with Leo is complicated. It's a long road, but he is in therapy, trying to dismantle the system he was raised in. This entire nightmare taught me a few brutal, necessary lessons. First, trust your intuition. If love feels like a cage, it's not love. It's control. Second, document everything. In a world of, he said, she said, a screenshot is a sword. And third, your real family isn't always the one you're born into. It's the people who see you, respect you, and fight for you. It's the Chloes of the world who offer you a key when you think all the doors are locked. My old life is over. My new one is just beginning. And if you believe that everyone has the right to be the author of their own story, then hit that subscribe button and join our community. We are all in this together.